The most important aspect of stormwater pond maintenance is vegetation management. If you carefully manage the vegetation, you will improve the performance and appearance of your facility and save money. While this video focuses on the vegetation, you may also want to view our video on maintaining a control structure, as the control structure is an integral part of most stormwater ponds. To find this video and others, visit www.cob.org and search for Stormwater University. Vegetation management begins by making sure we have access to the area. Anything that makes it difficult or dangerous for a person to move through the stormwater pond area needs to be removed. This includes plants with thorns such as thistle or blackberry. Also, blackberries and ivy can bind up fences and structures and should be removed. The access ramp should always be clear of vegetation to allow easy access to the pond in case of an emergency. Although all stormwater ponds are engineered differently, the basics of upkeep are the same. We'll take a tour of one stormwater pond with Lee First, pollution prevention specialist with resources for sustainable communities.
The first thing that we look for when we come into a stormwater pond is what kind of vegetation is here. Because maintaining the vegetation in a stormwater pond is the most important thing you can do to protect property values, to prevent flooding, and to maintain good water quality. So the most important thing when you get to the pond is to look at the kinds of vegetation, especially on the side of the pond. And on the side of the pond, we want to have grass. Grass is the best thing here. Grass protects the integrity of the sides of the ponds. The roots of the grass prevent erosion, and the grass provides some filtering and absorption of water. It's pretty easy to maintain the grass. You want to keep it between 4 and 9 inches tall, and you can use a lawnmower or a weed eater and just regularly mow the sides of the side walls of the pond, and then the grass should be removed from the stormwater pond because we don't want the grass to get into the water.
If cut vegetation is left in the pond, it can reduce the water storage capacity of the pond. Also, as the grass clippings decompose, they can rob the water of oxygen needed for a healthy downstream ecosystem. Since the grass protects the pond, watch for bare areas that can suffer from erosion, adding sediment to the pond. Overgrown grass and unwanted vegetation can hide problems such as volunteer tree seedlings, invasive weeds, and other issues.
One reason that you want to maintain the grass between 4 inches and 9 inches tall is you want to be able to see things like this. This is a rodent hole. Rodent tunnels on bermed pond walls will weaken the structural integrity of the berm, and in some cases allow water to seep out of the pond. These holes should be repaired and the rodents removed. For information about removing rodents, contact the Department of Fish and Wildlife.
Inspect your pond regularly for invasive and unwanted vegetation such as blackberries. Unwanted vegetation can outcompete grasses and take over the important native vegetation. Check your county website or call your local stormwater utility for information about invasive weeds. It's especially important to regularly check the vegetation around the inlets, outlets, and control structures. These areas need to be visible and accessible to maintenance crews, and blockage of an inlet or outlet during the rainy season can lead to flooding. It's a good idea to clearly mark the inlet and outlet pipes.
This is a good example of vegetation management that is not happening. This is the inlet for this stormwater pond, and we can't even see it because it's covered with all this vegetation here, including this tree, and these tree roots could be damaging the inlet pipe. So we want to clear this vegetation out of here, keep it out of here. So we need to manage this vegetation so we can see the outlet, and we want to mark it with a pole or a fence post so we can find it. In the pond bottom, usually there's a variety of emergent vegetation, and emergent just means the plants that stick up above the top of the water level. And here we have a nice mix of emergent vegetation, that's native vegetation that lives in the water. And it's not covering more than 25 to 50% of the pond bottom. If it was covering more than 50% of the pond bottom, then we would need to remove some sediment. But this is a really nice mix of native vegetation here. We got the cattails ringing the sides of the pond. You know, this is a nice, well-functioning system. It's improving water quality as the water moves out of the pond.
Ponds that become full of vegetation have a decreased water carrying capacity. A pond that is full of plants or plant debris may look healthy, but it is not functioning properly, and it cannot hold the amount of water it was designed to. If your pond is over 50% full of emergent vegetation, it is time to remove some of the vegetation and sediment. This is especially true if the emergent vegetation is in the middle of the pond. If maintenance is lapsed, you may need to call in a professional and heavy equipment to dredge the pond and remove trees. Once the dredging is complete, you can begin to rebuild the pond using native vegetation and grasses. During the dredging operation, ensure that none of the dirty water leaves the site. Trees should be away from inflow and outflow pipes and any other of the pond's infrastructure.
If your pond is surrounded by alder or cottonwood trees, you're going to have a constant supply of tree seedlings coming in. If you maintain the sides of the pond by regular weed eating or other methods, it's going to save you time and money because you won't have to come in with a chainsaw or pull the trees with heavy equipment. The worst place to have trees grow is on pond walls that are bermed. You never want to have a tree growing on bermed pond walls that are over 4 feet tall.
Trees should be removed immediately from pond walls. The roots can cause seepage of water out of the pond through the root channels, as well as other structural problems. Trees can also blow over, taking large areas of the pond wall with them. It's a good idea to create a maintenance schedule. As a minimum, inspect and maintain vegetation around the inlets and outlets quarterly, or more often if needed. You should check for tree seedlings and invasive vegetation at least twice a year. An important aspect is record keeping. This will help you set up a maintenance schedule, plan for expenses, and communicate with your city or municipality as required by law. Often, if you are unsure what to do, you can call your local stormwater utility. It is likely that they can answer your questions and offer advice. One of the most important things is knowing your responsibilities. If you're not sure where your property lines are, get a map from your local jurisdiction. Know what is public and private. For more information, visit www.cob.org and search for Stormwater University.